This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. I'm a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset. This podcast will help and support you with new ideas about business. These are my thoughts, ideas, and comments. Today I'm talking to Elizabeth Barry, who is a marketing professional, a leadership coach, and has lots of books and a really interesting story about TedX. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very good. So how has the coronavirus impacted you in your daily life?
My daily life, I would say that I am an introvert, extrovert, so I enjoy being home. I've always worked from home. I've worked from home for the past 15 years. So when people are complaining about being home, I kind of look at everyone and say, well, that's fine for me. I'm sad that the world is upset and hurt. I know people who have been impacted and who have flew to the heavens. For business-wise, for me, having just finished a book and being an international inspirational speaker, without people being able to be next to each other in a room, it's definitely going to impact that for the next year. So I'm really looking to make considerable changes to make sure that my effort and my words are shared with the world in the way that I wish for them to.
Yeah, it's obviously impacting everyone, this coronavirus. And I think there's lots of people that I've spoken to that are pivoting their business and changing around some of their priorities, like online courses and things instead of doing face-to-face courses, for example. So I just think, as you say, it's very sad that it's impacting so many people, and that it really has affected the world in probably never seen before. So yes, my thoughts and prayers are with everyone that's involved in it, and I think you share that as well.
Yes, and I'm also an animal activist. So if it did come from the wet markets, I would say to shut them down.
Yes, that's a very good point. So let's go talk about your origin story. So you did the communication, marketing, and advertising and dance at the University of Massachusetts. So tell me a little bit about that.
I really enjoyed college. I loved being up in the New England area in Massachusetts. I was involved in a lot of theater and dance, so I was always performing on a stage, and I made some beautiful relationships. And, back then studying marketing and advertising was just intriguing for me. And what I've carried through today, over 20 years later, is the Plato and Aristotle work. So when I tell people today on stages or as I coach and I say I'm a communication expert, I'm pretty proud that I actually still use my major today. And the classes that I took on Plato and Aristotle are still impacting me. In fact, I just ordered a book on Plato's life. It was based on, I forget who it was, but it's coming soon, because if you order any books on Plato or Aristotle, they're all textbooks from college. So I'm happy about that.
How did that impact you, or going back to the classics, in your in your studying and your career?
I really believe in, you call it the origin story. I really believe in the eloquence of speaking and the importance of persuasion. Mm-hmm. And the way that we listen and the impact that it makes on us as people. So as I look to build on my empire, which I'm focusing on kind communication and emotional intelligence, stemming from the marketing and advertising world, I think it's really important for all of us to go back to the basics and understand the eloquence in speaking from day one, and where are we now, and what happened in between. We throw around all these fluff statements. It is what it is. I'm fine. And then we continue to circulate them in our minds or in our social circles. And I believe that a more eloquent speaking habit is something that we can all kind of go back to and utilize on a daily basis.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think people, especially people who are speakers or people who are more confident to do it in front of larger audience, there's a skill, there's an eloquence, there's a you sort of deal with your communications, well, how you want to share those emotions or those influences with people. So do you think that modern day communication is possibly less effective than in the sort of classics times?
I just did audio version of my 2 books on kind communication, and I just wrote a love story that helps nurture loving partnerships and relationships. It's set to come out in August. And one of the things that I talk about in all of the different books is the value of eye contact. And I believe because of digital technology and our devices taking up so much of our time, as well as the influence of how we feel from a like or a comment or a notification, we simply forget that there's someone beautiful right in front of our face to speak to converse with, to learn from, to understand. And I believe that eye contact is something that is something that we should all go back to. And quite frankly, if we go back to it, I think the majority of people will be a little bit uncomfortable with it because they're so used to looking at their device. But eye contact will create an understanding. It helps someone feel understood and heard. And I think that there are so many things that I talk about in my work as a business coach and just as a mindset coach in general that we all just simply forget until we're retaught as adults.
I think that's really interesting because I don't think it matters whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. The actual basic skill set of being able to listen to people and be able to respond in kind, I think is something that is very much underrated. And as you say, using skills like eye contact is so important for that. And it builds trust. And when you're dealing with business, whether you're a business coach or a business owner, I think being able to, when you're speaking to someone, actually have the eye contact and listen to what they're saying rather than just having an agenda and pushing your agenda onto the coachee or the client, I think is important.
It's really important. And, the value of the simple things, the soft skills in what I talk about. And, most of us are causing a reaction instead of a response simply because we're rushing through life. We're rushing through moments based on a clock, based on a deadline, based on a quota, based on a salary or a title. And we're really, truly forgetting about the people in front of us and the impact of our relationship. So the importance of communication, kind communication, emotional intelligence, and the way that we use and connect our heart and our mind is something that I think is a valuable tool. Even if clients take 6 months with me or 9 months, they really get to refocus on all of the things that they've forgotten along the way because we're always so rushed and pushed into directions to make decisions. And sometimes we're bothered by people who are quite annoying or are not nice, or they interject in conversations. And when we come down to the basics and we simply breathe and smile and speak kindly, directly, and thoughtfully, we really do take on a more world view of positivity rather than a rushed state of mind.
I would agree. So I'm going to talk about how you got termed the title Compassionate Leader in a minute, because I think a lot of the stuff that we've talked about so far is really based around that that title that you've given. But I just wanted to bring back a part of your origin story. So we've talked about this and you're happy to discuss it, but I just wanted to know How has the loss of your boyfriend in a traumatic accident impacted your life and business?
You know, it's terrible to think about a tragic loss. I've never experienced anything like that in 41 years of my life. And everyone is complaining about Corona and being locked inside. I was locked inside for 2 months before that, grieving and suffering because of the impact of someone's really bad decision. And, you know, I am a miracle of life to be alive. The fact that I am actually alive, it gives me a purpose to remember that my spirituality, first and foremost, is the thing that kept me alive. I think, you know, I'm a spiritual person. I think God or the universe said, well, we don't want her yet. Let's take him. And maybe God needed him because of the coronavirus that came in February and March, because he was taken on January 3rd. But the biggest impact for me that I think about, and even I wrote about last night, was I was completing a book. It was called Design Your Mind to Be Kind when he was next to me. In fact, he told me that I should subtitle it Finding Your Path to Happiness, because my work brings happiness to people. And I completed it when his angels were next to me. And it was the only thing that I could do when I returned home from my vacation without him that made me sane. It was my solace to finish that book, and bringing that book to the world to heal them is wonderful. And I wrote another book, Our Love Story, but it's really just a story of loss and courage and faith for all relationships, to utilize everything that I talk about: kind communication, connection, eye contact, touching. You know, all of these things are super important to creating a foundation in love. And you know, I wrote that when my designer took my book away to edit it for 2 weeks, and I was still in my grieving mode and I didn't know what to do. I missed my book so much that I wrote another one, and it's super great. That'll be launching in August. So the way it's really impacted me was to tell me that time waits for no one. And I was saved, and I now have my purpose to bring to the world, and that purpose is my work, my body of work of writing and bringing everyone into my heart and soul, so that I can share with them how to live the way I live and the way I see the world, which is calmer, and it produces one heck of a second half of life. And that is exactly what he learned from being with me in the 11 months that we were together.
So I've talked about quite a lot on my podcasts about I had 3 consecutive bereavements in my immediate family in the matter of about 12 months. And I've talked a lot about it. And for me, coming out of that period with my podcast still intact, i.e. I was still recording when I was grieving, and the results of sort of business opportunities that have come as a result of that, or equally that have been driven due to that period of loss, I can totally empathize with you on that. And what I think is interesting is that you found a purpose after such traumatic circumstances, and I think that is super important, to have a purpose.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Well, I had my purpose. I think one of the things that I thought about the most, and I wrote about it in my books, is that I was writing and I was speaking, but I wasn't really pushing as hard as I should. And now I really have the story to tell. Now I'm ready for those bigger stages. And one of the other things that I've recently gotten to is that I've been knocking on business doors for the past 3 years to bring kind communication, compassionate leadership skills to them. And I realize that right now, I don't need the business world. In fact, the business world needs me. I bring change. And the way that I'm looking at it is that I'm currently surrendering to say, I have a mission, I have a purpose. It's based on something that everyone can learn from. But I'm not going to knock on anyone's doors anymore. I'm going to put my truth out there to know yourself, become yourself, and go higher. And I'm going to watch as they're going to come to me, because that's just how we have to manifest our lives. And I really look forward to continuing that strength and inner courage that I've always had. But with his passing and my being saved miraculously, there's really something strong to consider there, to just push harder than I ever have before, but in the most calm way.
Yeah, and I think also I read a lot at the time and listened to books that were talking about the hardest times are often the biggest character building, or this gives you the greatest strength. And I took a lot of that from my experiences, that I think I've come out a more resilient person. And I understand that you want to share with people your message of kind compassion. I think that's incredibly, there's an element of integrity there, which I admire very much.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be able to coach people and speak to people about this, and it's those that are ready to evolve. It's those that are ready to take on the muck, and it's quite embarrassing to do. So the people that actually come to me are really just transformed in ways that they've never even imagined, just by simply saying, I'm going to go to Elizabeth and I'm going to take that mirror and I'm going to look at myself in this way, because then they get more comfortable with themselves. They get more comfortable in the discomfort, and that makes them stronger, wiser, more compassionate, just more calm human beings. And especially in the state of the world today, if we can become less reactive, we're going to be better for it.
So how did you get the title of compassionate leader?
I wrote a book called The Kind Communicator, and this is at a point where I had a marketing agency, and then I got coached, and it changed my life, because I didn't know I was a reactor. I was a good door slammer. I was a good finger pointer, and I didn't realize it all until I got coached. And soon thereafter, I started coaching people and speaking on stages, and I ended up buying into a Pilates business. So not only was I doing B2B, I was doing B2C, and I realized that being an owner manager behind the desk is quite humbling, because the customers are demanding. They were so demanding. I didn't know how to work with people like that, and I just thought to myself, wow, really, customers are always right. But they're demanding, and they yell and they point and they demand, and it confronted my own demons. So what I learned is that through the art of being a compassionate, empathetic person, not only speaking, but listening and providing solutions, in what I call in my book solutions-based thinking and speaking, you can really get somewhere with people. I changed over 4,000 people's perspectives and ways of speaking to me just by being the kind communicator. I wrote the book, I teach and I coach about it, and it's really fantastic now to know that these principles are changing the lives of people simply by just being a nicer, calmer person.
think that's amazing. I interviewed a guy called Mark Crowley, and he was treating business with his heart. And Cowley, not Crowley, and I was incredibly touched by his approach to leadership, and equally. I've having the same sort of emotions from speaking to you, because I think a lot of people in business don't think about how much they impact people with negativity or with fear or with their sort of direct nature, that actually just being kind to people, and it helps coaching people, because I think there's a certain element of kindness to coaching, but actually treating people with kindness and respect is totally undervalued and should definitely be part of business so much more.
Yeah, it's just the element of self-awareness. I could talk about self-awareness all day. I can coach about it. And this morning I've been sending out books myself to buyers, and I was sending books for the first time to Canada, and I didn't fill out the proper forms, and the way that the woman spoke to me was so rude and inconsiderate, because I didn't see, I have a mask on my face, I have gloves on, and she was just really rude, and she yelled, and just because I didn't see a line where I could sign it and date it, and she wouldn't actually let me sign it and date it at the window. She made me get off of the line, go sign it, and then come back. And I think that there's an element of self-awareness that once we start to tap into it, and I talk about that in my latest book, Design Your Mind to Be Kind, as a fly above approach. When we could really fly above ourselves and see when we act in our not so great moments, that's when we truly learn how to change. Otherwise, we're just continuing the cyclical patterns that will, that just don't make us a higher vibrational human being.
So talk a little bit more about self-awareness, because it's something which has been fascinated me for a long time, that, as you say, some people aren't even aware of some of the way they treat people. So how would you advise, let's just take a scenario, you're coaching a client and they've come to you and they have little or no self-awareness of their directness or perhaps even rudeness. How would you try and release that so they would be able to be self-aware?
Well, I would get really curious with them, asking them questions, because if you're coaching someone and you hear the stubbornness, which is really just the ego speaking, the ego is the persona inside of us that dims our light, that needs to be right, needs to justify, has to look perfect, has to sound perfect. And the more I can get curious with them, which is really asking them questions about why they said things or things that they've done or experiences that they've had, they'll start to hear themselves a bit more. And then the more curiosity I bring into a coaching conversation would result in someone seeing a different perspective, an objective lens, like a reporter. Most of us want to see subjectively because it makes us right. I love to tell people it's not about being right or about being wrong. And a lot of those conversations, when the other person is confronted with their own subjective point of view, that's when they stop and they say, oh my God, or they have the aha moment. And then they start to crave more. And that's when it starts to hit. That's when they start to say, I want to know more about what I don't know. And I know that. I know it. I've seen it. And I went through it myself. It's an ugly, shameful, embarrassing point of our lives, but it brings the better life of the second half of life as an adult to say, I'm going to be healthier and happier in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s because I'm going to look at my stuff now. And it's not that we have a ceiling for life learning. When we continue this journey, we can mess up in real time. We can apologize in real time. And that brings out the calmer, compassionate us that we wish to be in the world.
I think that's amazing. I think that's incredibly powerful. So tell me about I read that you've got 3 books lined up for 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
So tell me
Yeah.
about them.
Well, I wrote a woman's book called Own Your Vulnerability. I'm still working with The Kind Communicator, and I just published the Design Your Mind to Be Kind book in March. And the next book, based on love and nurturing your relationships, is going to come out in August in 2020. Shortly thereafter, I have a woman's book on self-love. It's called A Course on Self-Love for Strong, Powerful, Worldly Women. And I have a men's vulnerability book that is coming out. It's already written. It's about 30,000 words. I have to go through it. I interviewed over 60 men across the globe years ago, because when I first put the women's book out on vulnerability, I had so many men come to ask me, well, where's our book? And it was really wonderful to know that men wanted to be more vulnerable. And as I've pushed through, the kindness thing just kind of came at me, and I already wrote Design Your Mind to Be Kind in my head when I put out The Kind Communicator. So I had to kind of put all of this work out in its place, because as a writer, it's coming out of you consistently. So there's always something that you have to kind of get out so that you can make room for the more juicy books that you have, or work that you have to share with the world. So I'm really excited about it. And when it comes down to it, the platform is under the house of Beyond Ego. Life begins where ego ends. And my topics are compassionate leadership, kind communication, vulnerability, self-love, and love.
I understand. So I think that's great that you've been able to talk to the males in your group, like people who follow you, as well as the women. But I understood earlier on in your career you had a focus on sort of women's equality in business. How do you think that's changed in the last 20 years?
I think women are getting stronger. Women are standing up for themselves more. And I think that there's what comes with that from when I was younger. There still is, but there's a lot of jealousy between people, especially in the corporate world. There's women that are jealous of other women. They hold them back. They are a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I'm seeing a lot less of that because of women's equality, where they give each other a hand rather than pushing each other back. And I also have seen in my career men that are jealous of women that are on the rise. So I think that women would get shaken by that if confronted in the past, but now with women's equality on the rise, there's more space for women to say, I don't care how you feel, I'm going to share what I have in my soul and what my experience has been with the world. And I think that's really powerful, that they're starting to get their inner confidence out into voiced to the world.
So do you think women are more supportive of each other in business than they ever were previously?
I hope so. I recently told on one of my podcasts, it's going to be coming out in August, a story of my old boss who did some rather mean things. And, I see women, and I work with a lot of women, and I think that there's a lot more support than I have previously seen. I think the biggest fallout of that is just pure jealousy. Women are jealous of each other, and if they don't have what someone else has, then they're going to put them down or confront them. And it's just really about the things that they don't have within themselves. And I really hope that women will rise and continue to rise, to stand for each other, and to know that if you have a lack thereof, you can still gain something and still be at the same level as another woman. And admiration should become a positive thing, where we all bring something beautiful to the world. And I'm really hoping that women work together a lot more in the next coming years.
Interesting. And so you're the founder and CEO of the Elizabeth Barry Consulting Agency. So that's your marketing agency, is it?
Yes, it's my marketing agency that I have really just positioned over the last few years to coach. And I've been coaching people on leadership and business, and I still have a few marketing clients as well. But it really just pans out to be self-branding and branding leaders in the terms of how they show up in the world and how they really want to live out their corporate, their career lives, and quite frankly, find their purpose. And I think that right now with the coronavirus, a lot of people are confronted with what their worldview looks like and sounds like and feels like for the next couple of years. And I'm hoping that more and more people start to come to me to say, I'd like to find my purpose. Maybe I've been following my ego for the past several years, and it's time for me to really find myself.
So how do you? I read that you've successfully launched numerous brands, whether it's companies or as leaders. So how does that branding differentiate from your other parts of your business? And how do you launch a successful brand?
Well, I was launching successful brands from entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs were in business for the first time, or were in business for 15 to 20 years where they were hitting a wall. Most of them were solopreneurs. And when you're a solopreneur, you're asking your mother, your sister, your brother, your friend if this looks okay, and they're yesing you and saying, sure, that looks okay, and nothing really did. So the brands that I launched or relaunched were from blank sheet of papers and helping clients to create apps and aromatherapy products, gluten-free sweets, anything that you can think of that an entrepreneur was coming up with. I did a lot of nonprofit work where I would come up with the brand's name, the campaign names, the logo, the tagline, all of the marketing content for the website, how it would be set up, and the launch criteria, which would be a press release and videos and how are we going to present the brand to the world for the first time. So it was such a fun moment in my life to be able to do that sort of work for people. But what I realized over the last several years is that I really love to work with those entrepreneurs, and where my fancy was is that there's a lot of fears that come out when you're launching a brand. There's a lot of things that we're confronted on a personal level and a professional development level, and that's really where I started to say, I love branding, but I really love the psyche a little bit better, and now I work with the same type of clients but on their professional development and how they're going to go into a room and pitch or persuade or hold themselves to the best person that they can be. And that's been really wonderful.
And so we've sort of touched on there about your coaching business. So sort of at a base level, where have you got your clients from? Have they evolved from your branding business? Did you then reposition yourself that you needed to set up your own coaching business? How did that evolve?
It's a really great question, because most of the clients that I've gotten so far are clients that found my writing on LinkedIn. I write an article or two every day and put it out there. I have about 6,000, almost 7,000 followers. And most of my clients just come from people that see my articles and they say, I'm hiring you. And then I have a lot of the people that I've coached on their TedX talks have come to me thereafter and said, I'm hiring you. I need a business coach. And, I'm still figuring out the magic formula right now to figure out when I put an ad out that says, I'm a coach who needs coaching. I get crickets from that. No one wants to say I have a problem. So if I come up with the winning formula, or if anybody is listening and they have the winning formula, please message me, because the only time I ever get clients is by someone saying, I love what you stand for. I'm hiring you. So it's always a struggle myself as an entrepreneur and how to put myself out there.
Yeah, and so I am sort of working on coaching some people, some consultancy work and a little bit of coaching as well, and sort of I'm sort of in that sort of phase where I'm looking for that magic formula of actually attracting clients and getting people interested. I've got an audience that is my podcast. I've done over 150 episodes, so I've got a pretty stable sort of support, but it's really interesting hearing about other people's ideas, how to stimulate people into action, because I think that's what a lot of people, when they listen to your podcast, they read your LinkedIn article, they read your books, and it's not that they're not inspired to do anything, it's that action stage,
yes,
which is the massive hurdle for so many people. So yeah, I totally share your thoughts on that sort of marketing of coaching, because you find your audience, but what you want is people to step up and come out and actually say, as you said earlier on, so many people have problems saying, I have a problem, or I need support, I need help. Yeah, it's interesting to hear your view on that as well.
Yeah, I was actually one of those people. Before I got coached, I wrote the book Own Your Vulnerability, and I was happy. I was in my life, and I was going to Italy, and I was going to be with a colleague of mine, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be with this other guy out here, and you're going to meet with him. I'm working with him. Just take a call with him. He's building a coaching business." And I said, No. I don't need a coach. I'm fine. I wrote Own Your Vulnerability. I'm so evolved. And I said no for about a month and a half. And then finally, because I was going to be with him in Italy, I just said yes, but I'm taking it as a courtesy. Within 15 minutes, I was completely hooked. I hired him on the spot. And that coach is now Gary Bishop, the author of Unfuck Yourself. And so I got him before he blew up. And I hired him for 6 months, and then I hired him for another 6 months. And then after that, I said, I want to do what he's doing, because he completely changed my life. And I think that coaching completely changes our lives.
Yeah, I would agree. I've had the same mentor coach for how many years now? Probably about 5 or 6 years. And I've found his ability to be able to influence me in the corporate environment has been incredibly invaluable. Although he's not, I'd never thought of this before, but he's an entrepreneur, and sort of way I've viewed corporate world is more upon an entrepreneurial side rather than a corporate side, which has actually made me quite successful on being different and standing out from people in the corporate world. I would 100% agree. I would think a coach or a mentor is a must for people in business. I think
yes,
as long as they're people that are in front of you, that have the skill set, have the knowledge, have the ability, then they can transform your business or your career.
Yes.
Excellent. So we touched on your TEDx event. So tell me how you got involved in that.
Well, that was really interesting. I was hosting, when I first started my marketing agency, I was hosting these little talks in my town of Hoboken, New Jersey, called the EBA Marketing Talk. And I was pretty much getting a lot of the business owners in town. I had 80 to 100 people with standing room only at these little events that I was hosting. And then the Chamber of Commerce contacted me, and they said, well, Elizabeth, you need to join because everyone's going to your events instead of ours. And then I slowly manipulated them to make me, I had them hire me so that I could rebrand their organization before I joined. And once I started, I was just so great and natural at putting together events. My designer actually said to me at the time in 2011, he said, Elizabeth, why aren't you doing a TEDx event? And immediately I went online, I applied, I went to TED twice. And in the past 8 years, I've hosted, marketed, publicized, created communities for 17 TEDx events. I created a speaker coaching. Hmm?
Sorry to interrupt. I read that 17 events you've done.
Yeah.
That is astonishing.
I was a little bit of a machine. I was addicted to it, and it was a volunteer position. But quite frankly, I was just so into leadership and mentors and worldly knowledge that I had a fascination with bringing speakers to the stage and then actually being able to coach them. Like, these are real big people who have big jobs, and they go through my coaching program and they're stunned and they're shocked and I'm like, wow, okay. And that's how I got a lot of my clients. But it was really just a beautiful period of my life. And then I recently moved to a different town, a little bit over from the town where I was curating them, so I haven't done one in a while. But it was a really beautiful time in my life where I know how to naturally bring people together. And there's a talent in that. And everyone always asks, oh, well, how do you do this? How do you do a TEDx? Everyone that does their own TEDx does it in their own way. So I never really like to give out my secrets unless I'm coaching someone. But it's really just a fascinating opportunity to be able to bring people together in a room and actually blow their minds. Not only with the content, but with the curation of a cool event that leaves them talking about it for years to come. And that's pretty much what I was able to do.
It's amazing that the whole TED events, how in the last, it must be 5-10 years, has totally blown up with people, keynote speakers that we've all heard of, and their involvement has, and what I liked about it, the way you explained it, was it's not just business or technology, it's actually breaking through and people thinking about new and different things, or thinking about things they know about in a different way, which has really attracted me to listen to some of the stuff that's on TEDx. So it must to be involved in all of the speakers must have just been an amazing experience.
It's really crafted who I am today. I've become so humble. I've become such a humble human being. I have a ton of energy. My initials are EB. Everyone says it's like Energizer Bunny. Still 41 years old. I have so much energy on and off stage. So for me to be able to do those sorts of events is just a way to get out all of my energy, but also give people a taste of my energy, because I feel like so many people crave curiosity and passion and a great positive mindset, and they have trouble achieving that where it just comes natural to me. So being on stage and having that attentive audience really just gives me the chance to make people feel heard, understood, and just feel really good about themselves, which is a part of humanity. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So amazing. So you are running a podcast called Beyond Ego.
Yeah.
Is that how? What's the format? Who are you meeting? Is it solo stuff?
Well, when I first launched it, I was doing interview style, and I got to interview some of my best mentors. My yoga mentors, Brian Kest. I had Krishna Das, who is a kirtan singer in the yoga world, and I interviewed him, and I never even aired it. He blew my mind, and I'm an involved. Both of them blew my mind. So I started out interviewing Keith Mitchell, who was an NFL player who now teaches yoga, and just different people from the aromatherapy world and acupuncture. So the whole preface in the Beyond Ego platform is that life begins where ego ends. And the interview style was wonderful for me. But again, I'm such a stickler for TEDx, and I call myself the kind communicator, but I really like to have things flow. So not everybody's a great interviewee. And after a while, I just got bored with the interview style. So I recently just started my podcast again. I'm going to launch it every month. And the new style is just me sharing my voice, sharing my mind with the world. And I just released Life Begins Where Ego Ends. That came out in April, and people are really enjoying that right now. And I'm really I've already done podcasts in this spoken radio format of just me talking through October. And, it's really fun for me to just be able to talk for 20 minutes and give people a taste of my mind.
So that was how I started my podcast. My podcast started, first 60 episodes were just solo stuff. There were thoughts, ideas. That's what I have in my starting about my thoughts, ideas and comments, because that was how I started. I thought I had a voice about some of my experiences in the corporate world and in business, and I just wanted to start sharing it. It was only I got asked by somebody who was a property guy and a sales guy. He said, like, I'd be great on your podcast. Why don't you interview me? And I started interviewing. I don't do every week. I try and get one every week or every other week where there's an interview, but I'm releasing 3 or 4 podcasts a week, and sometimes they're only 2 minutes long. Well, maybe not 2 minutes long. Sometimes they're only 5 minutes long. Sometimes they're 20 minutes. But yeah, I like being able to have the flexibility of having the interviews, because I get some really great, interesting people like yourself. But equally, I think it's quite important for my self-development and sort of my self-awareness to talk about things that are impacting me, or I've thought about, or I've read about, that inspires me, which I want to share to people as well.
Yeah, it's when you have a consistent flow of information going on in your head, then it's really great to have that platform where we can start to share what's inside of us, because the people are looking for information. People are looking to have their lives changed in a way, and for people like you and I who have something to say to the world, there are plenty of people to listen and be inspired and empowered to change their lives in some sort of way. So I admire you for that.
Yeah, I love doing it. I love talking. I love speaking to people. I love sharing I would do it for any there is no reason why I would stop at the moment. I've managed to get a balance in my sort of lifestyle, which gives me the ability to be able to do this. So there's no way I'm stopping at the moment. Anyway, so last question I just wanted to ask you was, how do you approach social media, and how does it fit into your business strategy in coaching, marketing, branding, your books? How do you use social media?
Well, I'm just being a marketer and being a branding expert. The way that I've approached it in the past couple of years is just sharing what's in my soul and my spirit at the time. Now I'm launching audio versions of my 2 books, so I make ads on Canva and then I share them. So I'm pretty sporadic and weekly doing it. As a poet and as a writer, when something tickles my fancy in a moment, I'll go right on all of my channels and just share it. As far as LinkedIn is concerned, I wake up with a lot of business thoughts in my head. So I write an article very easy, and I do it, 6 o'clock in the morning with my first cup of coffee and put it out there. As far as Instagram is concerned, I share whatever I feel like sharing whenever I feel like. And then with Facebook, I have the biggest, attentive audience there, just because of all of the things that I've done from TedX to women's empowerment to having my marketing agency to just being a woman of the world. People really take what I have to say, especially in my Beyond Ego page. They're really inspired by it. So not a lot of people, they might comment, yes, but there are a lot of behind the scenes messages that come through text or a Facebook message from people I've never even met. I have people coming to my book signings that say, I've been following you for 4 years. I drove an hour to get here just to meet you in person because you've inspired my career. So, I got something the other day from someone who said, I really admire everything that you're saying. I wish I could be half as vulnerable as you are. Keep putting your content out there. So if anyone is listening right now and they're putting content out there and they're worrying if people are listening or not, I think the point is to really just share your soul and your spirit. And, not everybody has the ability to comment or like or say something, and that shouldn't be the preface of your work. So that really hasn't been the preface of mine. What really comes into play with my social media presence is just sharing whatever I feel whenever I feel like it, and hoping people really like it and share it around.
So I think that's a great strategy. So we're coming to the end of our conversation. So I ask the same 5 questions to every guest that I have on my podcast. They're quick fire questions, but they don't need quick fire answers. Depends on how much you want to elaborate. So the first one I ask is, what was the best decision that you've made?
I think the best decision that I made is to keep putting my heart out there. I've listened to Wayne Dyer since I was in my early 20s, and 6 CD Changers. I've met him. I coached his daughter, Sky Dyer. She gave a TedX talk at one of my events, and she sang. The best decision that I've made is to model my mentors. And I'm stepping into the shoes of the people that have made me become who I want to be. And I'm not afraid to put a book out. I'm not afraid to put 2 books out or 3 books out based on what I have to say. And I think that modeling your mentors and really just being unafraid, unabashed, unscared to share your soul with the world. If you're inclined to do that, then you're really going to be happy with yourself. So the best decision for me was to model who my mentors were and to step into their shoes in my own life.
Excellent. What's the best advice you've been given?
The best advice that I was given was by someone that I knew in my early 20s, and I didn't take it quite well at the time, because I was all about ego, hence why I write about ego and kind communication. I was ashamed and embarrassed. And once I stepped into that, I realized that, other people could have a point when they're giving you constructive criticism. And it was just to slow down, calm down in the moment. And I'll never forget the advice, because I just really chilled the heck out. And I might have a lot of energy, but I'm so calm and so chill and so humble, no matter how many things that I do with my career or what success I reach. Success to me is just being a happy, humble person. So, that advice I think about to date. And again, I wasn't really into it at the time when I was being given it, because it meant that I maybe had to slow down a little bit. And I was embarrassed about not being the person that was slowed down or not calm. And now I'm pretty much one of the calmest people I know, especially faced with adversity. And that makes me really proud.
Excellent. Who helped you most in your career? You've talked about mentors and coaches, but who's helped you most?
I would just say Wayne Dyer. Following his passages and just listening to his voice still today, every day I listen to him, even though he has passed. The way that he saw life and incorporated nature into his teachings has inspired me to do the same with my work. So he's definitely been the first and foremost person behind my voice today.
Interesting. Do you have any regrets?
No.
Awesome.
No, I don't have any regrets. I feel that everything is in divine order. Not even before I got into my tragic accident, making the decision to do what we did, even though it was someone else's fault. I don't have any regrets, and I don't ever will, because I think that everything that comes into our lives is something for us to learn from and to grow from. And until we can really get down into the muck of that growth, we won't be able to see that, and that'll continue to produce regrets for most people.
Interesting. And what are you most proud of?
I guess I'm most proud of the fact that I continue to create every single day and have a positive attitude. A girlfriend said to me over the weekend when we were having a conversation, she said, I feel really bad telling you all my problems. They're so tiny compared to yours. You just lost your love, and you're going through all of these difficult things financially, with an apartment, and what happens when someone passes away is their evil family comes in and treats them like an asset with their money, and all of these different things. I've seen the worst in people, and I still carry a positive attitude. And I think I'm really proud of that, because I walk my own talk with my work, and that makes me most proud.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. It's a really inspiring story that you've shared with my audience today and with me. Thank you very much for your time. Any last comments? Where people can find you, perhaps?
My last comment is to be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And please visit my website at elizabethbarryconsulting.com and pick up one of my books. If you're, no matter where you are, we will ship. I shipped some books out to Canada today, and I do have the audio versions being available on Wednesday. So they'll be out there no matter when this podcast is seen or heard. So definitely check out my work. It's what I like to say is the work is worth it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
One last thing before you go, I am taking on new coaching clients. So if you are interested, go to my website and go to absolutebusinessmindset.com. Go down to the bottom onto contact us and drop me a note. Put in the title that it's for coaching. I've got 13 years worth of corporate experience where I've moved through promotions. I'm really looking for people that are starting their career in the corporate environment, are stalling in their career, or want a fresh perspective or a change in role. I'll be able to help all you guys that are in those sorts of positions, and I'm here to be able to help. So go to absolutebusinessmindset.com, down to the bottom, contact us, and just drop in the subject that you want to help on coaching. Thanks.